Have you ever wondered what happens when a giant falls? I mean, a real titan of an industry, a name that was just everywhere, and then it's gone. Well, today we're going to dive into the story of one of the biggest names in computing history and figure out how it vanished almost overnight.
Okay, so let's get right into it. If you were around buying computers in the 90s, the name Compaq was basically synonymous with PCs. I mean, they were the undisputed king, the biggest seller on the entire planet. And yet today, they're gone. So that's the big question we're going to unravel. How does the number one player on the board get completely wiped out?
First off, you really have to appreciate just how dominant Compaq was. We're not talking about some small-time player here. These guys were the market leader. They built this whole global empire on a really powerful and kind of traditional idea about how you sell things.
Compaq's superpower, their secret sauce, was this retail model. And for its time, it was absolutely brilliant. They had partnerships with all the big stores, CompUSA, Best Buy. If you wanted a Compaq, you just walked into a store and picked one off the shelf. This gave them incredible scale, massive brand recognition, and a presence in stores all over the globe. Honestly, it seemed unbeatable. But here's the thing. While Compaq was busy perfecting the old game, a brand new one was just getting started, and the challenger came out of Austin, Texas, with a completely different playbook that was about to shake Compaq's foundation to its core. And when you put the two models side by side, wow, the difference is just night and day. Compaq would build a ton of computers, ship them out to retailers, and then just wait for you to come buy one. That meant months and months of inventory just sitting around in warehouses, which costs a lot of money. Dell, totally different. They sold directly to you over the phone and later over the internet. They didn't even build your computer until after you paid for it. We're talking days of inventory, not months. The result? A lower price and unbelievable agility. And here is why that agility was so critical. Dell could slap the latest, greatest processor into their machines the second it became available. Compaq, on the other hand, had to sell through all their old inventory first. That speed and responsiveness gave Dell this huge, undeniable edge. The ground was literally shifting right under Compaq's feet.
So how did the king respond to this new threat? Well, instead of trying to fight Dell on their own turf, by becoming faster and more direct, Compaq made this absolutely monumental $9 billion gamble to just pivot away from the fight entirely.
$9.6 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. Back in 1998, that was a mind-boggling amount of money, the kind of money that can totally reshape an industry. So the obvious question was, what on earth could possibly be worth that much? This is what it was for, buying Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEEC for short. At the time, it was the single largest acquisition in the history of the tech industry. This wasn't just a simple purchase. It was a massive, game-changing statement.
And on paper, the logic seemed pretty sound. Why get into a price war with Dell over razor-thin margins on PCs when you could go compete with a giant like IBM for these super lucrative corporate contracts? Buying DEEC was supposed to transform Compaq almost overnight, from a company that just moves boxes into a high-end enterprise powerhouse, complete with a massive global sales force.
But this brilliant strategic move, it had a fatal flaw. Instead of solving Compaq's big problem, the acquisition actually created a brand new one, a massive, paralyzing crisis right inside the company itself. This one quote just says it all. It was a total disaster. Compaq was this fast, aggressive, scrappy PC company built on speed. DEC was an old-school, slow, formal engineering company from a totally different era, and when you tried to match them together, you didn't get a stronger company. You got total gridlock.
And you can just see how this all fell apart, like a domino effect. First, that culture clash led to constant infighting. Then, management got completely distracted. Instead of watching Dell, they were focused on internal power struggles. And what happened? Their core PC business, the engine that powered the whole company, was completely neglected and just started to fall apart.
The consequences of all this internal chaos were, well, they were swift and they were brutal. While Compaq was busy fighting with itself, Dell was out there absolutely eating their lunch. And the shift in power was just stunningly fast. I mean, look at this. In just a few short years, you see Compaq's market share just tank, while Dell's goes through the roof. Dell didn't just catch up, they blew right past the distracted, struggling Compaq and became the new number one.
This timeline really shows you how incredibly fast the whole thing unraveled. You've got the huge acquisition in '98. By '99, the problems are already public. By 2000, they're not number one anymore. And then, just 2 years later, the final nail in the coffin. Compaq, the former king, gets bought by its rival, HP, and the brand eventually just disappears.
So when you boil it all down, Compaq's fatal mistake was really this. When they were faced with a faster, more agile competitor, their answer was to buy something big, old, and complicated. They chose to buy scale when they should have been building speed. And that was a fatal error.
And that right there brings us to the biggest lesson from this whole story. When the fundamental rules of your industry are changing, just being big and powerful is not enough. Agility, that ability to adapt, to react, to change course quickly, that's what really determines who survives and who doesn't.
So, that leaves us with one last thought, right? The story of Compaq, it isn't just ancient history, it's a really powerful cautionary tale. It kind of makes you wonder, which of today's dominant, seemingly untouchable giants might be making that same mistake, choosing scale over agility and unknowingly walking down that exact same path?